From Evoke Media, I'm Sabrina Mirage Naeem. With me is Cassia Binkowski, and this is Breaking Glass, a series of conversations with women around the world who are shattering glass ceilings and challenging social norms. They are audacious, gutsy, and their stories are echoed across borders and generations in a rallying cry that is changing the narrative for women everywhere. Before we jump into our conversation today, I want to share an exciting exclusive event our Evoke Media team has been working on. You may recall one of our first episodes features Irish civil rights activist Alva Smith and the documentary she's featured in, The Eighth. This beautifully made film tracks the grassroots fight to overturn one of the most restrictive abortion bans in the world. In advance of The Eighth's official U.S. release, we're hosting an exclusive event on July 13th that you are invited to. You'll have access to watch the film and join us for a timely and pivotal discussion on July 13th at 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Snag your spot at weareevokemedia.com. If you ever had the burning desire to have an honest conversation about feminism with your dad, this one's for you. Cassie and I got to sit down with my father, David Mirage, a successful businessman, immigrant, and philanthropist, about the women who shaped him, why he's hitching his wagon to early childhood education, and why calling himself a feminist is still a hard pill to swallow.
Sabrina, this conversation was so much fun. Not only did it feel like I got to challenge my own father on his beliefs and preconceived notions about feminism, but I also enjoyed sitting in on this intimate family conversation. Why is it so easy for older men to want the best for the women they care about, and yet still so hard for them to proudly announce themselves as feminists? Why do we feel the need to repackage issues that clearly disproportionately impact women to be more palatable for men? And how did the term feminist become so alienating to so many people? We certainly weren't shy about challenging David on all of this and more.
Enjoy this special Father's Day edition of Breaking Glass, and just maybe, you'll feel compelled to lovingly challenge the men in your life to join us on this journey of women's equity.
Take a listen.
Hi, Dad.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us.
I was wondering how you're going to address me.
What should I call you, David? Hello, Mr. Mirage. Thank you for joining us today. No, you're my dad. Hi. This is definitely a unique opportunity for us because, as our listeners know, we very often have guests who are women, and many times guests who we don't know. We don't even have
pretty much always.
Yeah, almost always. Almost always we have guests on the show who we maybe have never even spoken to before, which actually lends itself to a more interesting conversation. We just dive right into a recording. That obviously in this case is not so. And frankly, I had to kind of convince you a little bit to do this with us. You were a bit apprehensive about it. But I think it's going to be really interesting. And what we wanted to talk to you about today, in addition to kind of hearing about your upbringing and your background and where you came from and the strong women in your life who helped to shape you, we also kind of want to dig into how we can better sell feminism to the skeptics. And I think that you would have an interesting idea about that. So before we get into that, let's start with where you began. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and your early years, your upbringing.
I was born in Tehran, Iran, and my father was raised in Paris, France, and most of his young adult life he was there. And he had to go from poverty that his family came from. We are Jewish, and as Jews were living at the time, they lived in ghettos, and it wasn't only in Iran, but it was around the world. And he was a self-starter man, and he had to leave everything and run away and go back to Iran when he was in his 30s, when the war broke up and France was going to be occupied. So as a father, he always thought about how his life would have been if he had stayed in France, and he had difficulty adjusting to that society. So all the kids, except one, we are 5 siblings, we all left very early on. I left Iran when I was 15, went to England, and was there for 2 years, went to United States, and I found that the US was home. And that has been the case the rest of my life.
So, David, I want to interrupt you because I have so many questions. Sabrina obviously knows all of these things already. First of all, how many boys and how many girls in your family? You're one of 5.
There are 3 boys and 2 girls.
And second, did you all know that you were going to leave? Were you all was that kind of part of the upbringing and the expectation that you would all leave? Did that come as a surprise? I'm curious kind of around the expectations in your family and the fact that nobody is, still there, none of your siblings anyway.
There was no surprise. It was just a matter of time. Some of us left earlier, and some of them, my older brother, he left when he was 18. The second one left when he was 16. My sister left when she was 18. And I was the youngest. I was 15 when I left. The last one, which happened to be my youngest sister, she was much younger than I, and she came with my parents to the United States. So there was no question that this is the way our life is. And we were one of the few unique families at the time that we all moved away from the family.
And I just want to address that because most of the Iranian Jews who left, they fled because of the revolution, either right before, during, or after. They had to leave their homes, their businesses, their all of their belongings. Many of them were never able to go back. And that's also the case for us, that we were never able to go back and your family was never able to go back. But what's unique about your family is it was long before the revolution that your upbringing in Iran, you often talk about it being kind of oppressive. You never felt like you fit in there, and your siblings similarly. Why is that, given so many others who were forced to leave? For them, it was home. It was home. They never felt kind of the same way that you did. Why do you think that your family felt differently?
Again, I think it had to do with the impact that my father had on us, and his constant talk about his life in France, and he was constantly comparing the culture and the way of life of Parisian to Iranians. We actually left Iran in the golden ages of Iran, and things got even better after we left. Now, talking about what was at the time, many of my teachers were women, either in first grade through ninth grade, which is where I left. I had many, many women. There were women in many different roles, even including judges, including business owners, including doctors,